Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever noticed something incredibly strange about the times we're living in? I mean, despite our unbelievable intelligence, the modern world feels fundamentally broken. We've got access to more data, more research, and way more high-level expertise than literally any generation before us. Yet somehow, the really big problems just seem to linger. And honestly, sometimes they even multiply. In this explainer, we're going to unpack a fascinating phenomenon called the hyper-specialization paradox, and we'll look at why being hyper-smart might actually be making us hyper-blind to the whole elephant in the room.
So, why does a smarter world feel more broken? It's a pretty captivating mystery, right? The easy answer, well, the lazy answer really, is to just assume our experts aren't smart enough or that folks at the top just don't know what they're doing. But the reality is much more complex and honestly, much more interesting. The truth is, our experts are brilliantly, extraordinarily smart. But the catch is that they're so good at understanding one incredibly specific part of reality that the rest of the world just quietly slips right out of their view. Just think about these glaring modern contradictions for a second. We have the most brilliant engineers in history, yet we still see bridges collapsing, cities flooding, and infrastructure totally failing the second nature behaves unpredictably. We've got the most advanced medical science humanity has ever known, yet millions are living with chronic stress, anxiety, and depression that no single pill can fix. We've got economists who can predict complex global markets and design policies to make nations insanely wealthy, yet some of the richest societies on Earth are also the absolute loneliest. Reality just totally escapes the narrow view of the specialist. A bridge isn't just engineering, It's geology, climate, and human decision-making. Health isn't just biology. It's the mind, your relationships, your environment. Prosperity isn't just a paycheck. It's community and purpose.
So the crucial point here is, the tragedy isn't that our experts are wrong. The real tragedy is that they're often brilliantly right, but only about one tiny piece of a much larger picture. And that leads us to the terrifying paradox of the modern world. As experts become more elite, they actually become hyper-blind to everything outside their specific focus. Because the deeper we learn to see one part of reality, the easier it gets to mistake that one part for the whole thing.
Section 1. The elephant in the room. Blind men and specialists. To truly grasp how this modern hyperblindness actually works, we need to take a quick step back in time. You've probably heard the ancient fable of the blind men and the elephant, but trust me, it has literally never been more relevant than it is right now. Let's map out this fable real quick. One guy touches the elephant's trunk and confidently declares it's a snake. Another grabs the leg and swears up and down it's a tree. A third holds the tail and says it's obviously a rope. Now, here's the kicker. They are all technically right about the specific part they're touching. Their localized data is completely flawless, but they are entirely, disastrously wrong about the whole elephant.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what happens today. Except today, we don't call them blind men. We call them specialists. If society faces a massive crisis, an economist will look at the data and diagnose a crisis of financial incentives. A public health expert looks at that exact same crisis and sees viral transmission. A sociologist looks at it and diagnoses systemic inequality. And none of them are lying. They're all absolute geniuses in their fields. But because they're trapped inside their own perspective, they treat their specific slice of reality as the entire truth.
Section 2. The historical shift from polymaths to specialists. So, how did we even get to a place where our brightest minds are so utterly disconnected from the big picture? We used to live in an era where the greatest minds studied absolutely everything at once. Think back a few centuries to the Renaissance polymaths. People like Leonardo da Vinci or Isaac Newton were studying physics, art, politics, and philosophy all at the same time. But then we hit the information explosion. Human knowledge grew so incredibly vast that it became impossible for one single brain to hold it all. So society basically made a deal. To advance, we had to specialize. We built an entire system that actively rewards you for knowing more and more about less and less. Until eventually, as a modern specialist, you know absolutely everything about practically nothing, like spending 20 years of your life in academia studying just the left antenna of a specific fruit fly. But here's the catch. This hyper-specialization creates a massive psychological glitch. It's called Maslow's hammer. If the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to treat everything as if it were a nail. Deep specialization effectively traps our experts inside their own toolkits, completely limiting how they perceive and interact with the world around them. Let's see how this hammer effect actually plays out in the real world. Hand a problem to a software engineer, they're going to immediately build an app for it. Give that exact same problem to a lawyer, and they'll find someone to sue. Hand it over to a bureaucrat, and congratulations, you've just created a brand new committee. They aren't actually solving the core problem in front of them, they're just solving the version of the problem that neatly fits into their specific set of tools. Which takes us into an even deeper danger. Section 3, map versus territory, legible versus illegible. This is all about the profound psychological difference between the neat little models we build in our heads and the messy reality of the actual world.
See, experts absolutely love what's legible, things that can be cleanly measured, neatly organized into spreadsheets, and turned into beautiful, satisfying graphs. But reality? Reality is inherently messy, chaotic, and illegible. It's driven by things that simply do not fit into a spreadsheet cell. Human emotion, spite, culture, timing, and just pure, unpredictable luck. To make their mathematical maps look pretty, experts constantly have to filter out the chaotic, illegible parts of real life. And that brings us to a golden rule. The map is not the territory. When an expert builds a perfect, clean model, they often forget this. And when the map doesn't actually match their real-world terrain, what happens? The expert unfairly blames the terrain. They'll complain that the market is irrational or the public is uneducated, but the truth is way simpler. The model was just too simple for a vastly complex universe.
Section 4, the multidisciplinary mind, becoming T-shaped. So what's the fix here? Do we just stop listening to experts entirely? No, absolutely not. We still desperately need neurosurgeons operating on brains and rocket scientists launching our satellites. But we do need to radically upgrade how we think.
Now, what's really interesting here is the stark difference between a complicated task and a complex one. Hyperspecialization is basically a superpower for complicated tasks, things with clear rules and predictable outcomes. But for the wild, interconnected complexity of real life, you need an entirely different strategy. You need multidisciplinarity. Enter the T-shaped thinker. This is pretty much the ultimate strategy for 21st century minds. The vertical bar of the T represents your deep, specialized expertise in one specific thing. You still have that core anchor strength. But the horizontal bar, that represents your ability to sprint across different fields. It's your ability to speak the languages of psychology, history, design, and economics, which allows you to connect the dots that the specialists totally miss. Section 5, Charlie Munger's mental lattice. To figure out how to actually achieve this T-shaped mind, we can look to the legendary investor, Charlie Munger. Munger famously advised that we have to build a mental lattice of models. And this is incredibly freeing, honestly, because it means you don't need to know every little thing about every subject. To build this lattice, you just need to master the top, big ideas of the major disciplines and interlock them in your mind. You just need to grasp the core 10% of major fields. Think biology, psychology, physics, economics. When you combine those core mental models, you suddenly gain a superpower. You're no longer just staring at the elephant's trunk or its tail. You finally have the cognitive tools to step back and see the whole animal in all its interconnected glory. So, as we wrap up this explainer, keep this firmly in the back of your mind. The next time you see a supposed genius fail or watch a perfect, data-driven plan completely fall apart in the real world, don't be surprised. Just remember that the architects of that plan were likely trapped in their silos, looking at a vast, complex reality through a tiny little keyhole. You've got to open the door. Force yourself to look at the messy, beautiful, interconnected picture. Because, as this quote powerfully reminds us, truth doesn't live in a single silo, it lives in the spaces between them. It's exactly in those spaces where psychology meets economics, where biology meets sociology, that the real answers are actually found. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Will you stay trapped in a single silo, or are you ready to build your lattice and finally see the whole elephant? That choice dictates exactly how clearly you're going to see the world from this day forward. If you want to continue building your own lattice of mental models, hit subscribe. Let's keep learning how to see the complete picture together. Catch you in the next explainer.